One of the biggest reasons people think about driving Uber is flexibility. Working when you want, stopping when you want, and not being locked into any fixed schedule. But the big question is, does it actually pay enough to be worth it? Like, can you actually drive Uber as your full-time job? What I specifically wanted to know was this: what does Uber look like for the average person driving during normal working hours? Think 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. No overnight shifts, no surge chasing, not trying to game this system, going online, accepting rides as they come, and seeing what the real numbers actually look like. There are ways to make much more money than what I'm about to show you, and I'll get to those later in the video. But first, I wanted a clean, simple baseline that feels realistic for most people. I drove Uber for 3 straight days, about 8.5 hours per day for a total of 24 hours and 43 minutes, just under 25 hours. All normal daytime driving, nothing fancy. This was intentionally one of the least optimized ways to drive Uber because I wanted to see what it looks like when you just keep things simple. So let's get into the actual numbers. My driving week was December 15th to the 22nd. I completed 51 trips and earned $550.13. Now that number does include any tips people left, which is about 10 to 20% of time when you drive people. But before gas, $550.13 over 24.7 hours works out to just over $22 an hour. But gross doesn't matter. What you actually keep does. So during that time, I drove about 500 miles total, and I averaged about 40 miles per gallon. I drove my wife's car, which is great on gas. That means I used roughly 12.5 gallons of gas. At $2.30 a gallon, which is where I live, my total fuel cost was right around $30. So after gas, my real take home was about $520. That puts my true average at roughly $21 an hour after gas. Now, here's an important thing to point out. This was only 3 days of driving, not a full 5-day work week, but all 3 days averaged almost the same. So this wasn't one of those amazing days propping up the stats. This was no big surges or lucky rides. It was just steady, repeatable driving that I could have continued as many days as I want, but I had other things to do. So let's talk about what this looks like depending on how much you actually want to drive, because this is where Uber is very different from a normal job. So at about $21 an hour after gas, if you only want to drive 20 hours per week, which is a realistic side hustle, it's about $420 a week, or roughly $21,840 a year. If you drive a normal full-time schedule at 40 hours a week, you're looking at roughly $840 a week, or roughly $43,680 a year. Not too shabby. And if you're someone who wants to drive more, say 60 hours per week, that's about $1,260 a week, or roughly $65,520 a year. Now that last part is important because most traditional jobs cap you at 40 hours where Uber doesn't. You're not forced to work more, but if you want to, you can. And that flexibility alone is a big perk for a lot of people, especially if you want to plan a vacation, so you want to work extra the week before, whatever it is. You can't just ask for extra hours at your job necessarily. Now let's talk about how people actually make more money with Uber, and if you were just starting to drive Uber, you can do this as well. Number one, paying attention to surge areas. When demand is high in certain parts of a city, Uber adds extra pay to rides in these areas. Many experienced drivers keep an eye on this and will move toward nearby surge areas when it makes sense because the bonuses stack on top of each ride. If you've ever asked for an Uber ride, you sometimes see that it's really expensive. That's what's called a surge, and it's because they're giving people more money to come drive. Number two, driving earlier in the morning. In many markets, one of the best windows is actually 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. That's when people are heading to work, catching early flights, trying to avoid traffic, whatever. These rides tend to be more consistent than slow midday hours, let's say around lunchtime. Number three is to be selective with ride requests. Experienced riders don't accept every ride that comes in. They look at Uber's estimated hourly rate and often pass on rides that are under $20 an hour, aiming for $25 to $40 an hour when possible. Now, not every ride will hit that range, but being selective over time makes a big difference. And when I say that hourly rate, I don't mean how much money you're making on the ride. It's the hourly rate, because Uber may tell you, for example, this ride is going to make you $7.14. And $7.14 might not actually be a bad rate at all if you only have 2 minutes away to pick them up and it's only a 5-minute ride. You see what I mean? So the estimated rate is how much it actually is going to make you when you're driving them. So it doesn't necessarily matter if it's a 5-minute ride or if it's a 3-hour ride. That hourly rate is the hourly rate. And if you get a bunch of small hourly rates that are high, you make just as much money as a long ride. So the time of the ride doesn't matter. What matters is the estimated hourly that you actually make. Now, with that said, one very important thing, and number 4, is watching how far the pickup is. Uber pays drivers when they're driving a rider, not when they're driving to the rider. Because of that, experienced drivers pay close attention to how far away they are from the pickup distance and try to avoid long pickups whenever possible. Many aim for pickups under 10 minutes away because long pickups quietly kill your real hourly rate. Obviously, you can make $8 to drive someone 4 minutes, but if it takes you 20 minutes to get to that person, well, now you have to factor in that you're making $8 for the 28 minutes or 30 minutes of total time. That's not smart. And number 5, this is one that definitely matters, but not all people want to do it. And that is number 5, driving overnight. If you're comfortable with it, some drivers choose to work late hours like 8 p.m. to 5 a.m. when demand is much higher because there are significantly less drivers. So there's often much more bonuses. The trade-off is that the experience can be very different, more nighttime driving and sometimes more unpredictable riders like drunk people or maybe people that are doing things they shouldn't. So it's not necessarily for everyone. But when drivers combine even a few of those strategies, it's realistic that in most cities, they can raise their hourly rate close to $25 an hour, and in some cases closer to $30 an hour, depending on location and timing. And that money can add up for sure. Because if you take a look at $25 an hour, 20 hours a week will get you $500 a week or $26,000 a year. Working full-time with that rate, which is not unrealistic, can make you $1,000 a week, $52,000 a year. 60 hours a week could make you over $78,000 a year. And that's not just inflating numbers. Now, some people don't want to work that many hours. I get it. But 60 hours for some people is totally okay and doable. 5 12-hour days. So those aren't guarantees. They depend on the city, your schedule, and how you drive. But they show what's possible compared to my simple baseline. But the flexibility is real. You don't request time off. You don't ask permission. You can work 20 hours, 40 hours, 60 hours, whatever fits your life. And a lot of traditional jobs don't give you that kind of control. If you know you want to go on a week-long vacation, you could just work a lot longer the week before and the week after and kind of make the same money and never request off. So is Uber a good side hustle? I think for a lot of people, yes. And can it be done full time? Also, yes. Especially if you're smart about when you drive and you have a fuel efficient vehicle. Uber isn't a magic money button, but it's also not a waste of time. If you drive normal daytime hours, keep things simple and use a fuel efficient vehicle, earning $21 an hour is pretty realistic. And you get to decide how much you want to drive. And a lot of hourly jobs these days are advertising $17 to $20 an hour. So this is just as good as most of those, and you have flexibility. So hopefully this video was helpful to you. At the start of a new year, I started thinking to myself, a lot of people, when they start a brand new year, are thinking about side hustles, or they're thinking about new jobs, or they're curious about this or curious about this. So early in the year here, I wanted to make some videos that would be a little bit more experimental to be able to see what would it look like if you did this or if you did this. So hopefully this was helpful. Comment below. Let me know if you liked it or if you want to see some other experiment. I love trying out new things. I'm an Enneagram 7 with ADHD. So if you know what that means, then you'll get it. Thanks for watching.